What if we could learn from outstanding leaders in business, sports, and education from some of the best voices in corporate America? Lighting the Path is a series of interviews with industry leaders whose stories highlight strategies that build purpose-driven cultures, engage and retain top talent, develop drivers that create high-performance teams, and connect people to the vision of your company. Join us to hear from game-changing, talented leaders whose paths make a difference at work and at home.
Today's truly a treat for me. And the reason I say that is I get a chance to talk to people literally around the world in my work. But today I get a chance to spend time with somebody that I've known since he was, as they say, a wee lad who has grown into an amazing young man. And that's Alejo Orvananos Jr. The reason I've asked Alejo to spend time with us today is because Alejo went through the University of Texas School of Business, came out and spent time with JP Morgan in an internship program, summer program, where they hired what they consider to be the best, the brightest, and put them through a summer of working in the mergers and acquisition investment area. And when he came out of that, rather than staying within the large financial institution arena, chose to go to work with a tech startup. And I wanted to get Alejo's views for us on, from a generation, this Gen Z that we keep hearing about, the conflict between Gen Z and the older generations, to get his perspective on what his group looks at when it comes to leadership. Because this is a guy who thinks and acts and works as a leader, trying to carve out a new path, because he's working with a startup. So welcome, Alejo. It's been fun. I'm looking forward to having you join us.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for taking the time, and it truly means a lot for you to have me here. Obviously, we've known each other for a very long time, but it's definitely good to finally get to connect. And yeah, I think I finally have a few things that I could definitely share or talk about just from personal experience. And so I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, especially because now you went to, or you're working right now with a startup, a tech startup.
Right.
That, and you chose to go toward the technology space in launching your career. What drew you in that direction?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that there's a lot of exciting things happening right now with artificial intelligence. I think it's the biggest platform change since the internet, and it'll change just a lot of the ways that we work and interact with each other, and just with each other and with work. And so, I've always been really passionate about experiences and the people that curate experiences. I started off as the social chair of my fraternity at UT. I was having 2,000 people parties, and I was in charge of organizing all these events. And I loved it so much that I even started an events company in college. And so, for a long time, every Thursday I would put on a different event downtown. And I really fell in love with the experience economy. And I think Gen Z really, really values experiences, and really is, part of the reason why the experience economy has grown so much. We want experiences. We want to have moments with friends, maybe over material things that, we've maybe other generations have grown up sort of wanting. And so, yeah, I think, the combination of the two, the wanting to be in something that's at the bleeding edge, and also, wanting to be contributing to the experience economy, really just led me to joining this company. It almost felt like a no-brainer.
Yeah. So now help those that are not familiar with this term, experience economy. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, generally my generation, and maybe millennials as well, are starting to value a lot more moments and experiences. So whether that's going to dine out with friends, going to a concert, going to a game, going to a bar, over physical possessions. So it's no longer, that you strive for a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, or maybe even like a, big house in a certain neighborhood. It's a lot more focused on, the actual experiences. So maybe like a trip, or like a concert or a festival or a night out. My generation definitely feels like a lot of their preferences have shifted more towards that, and less towards maybe certain, physical goods and certain things of that nature.
or the acquisition of status, physical status. It's that experience. But what you're describing is what I'm hearing is valuing human interaction, of interacting with people.
Right.
Does that poke a hole and maybe create a myth in the fact that, let's just call it, I hate to say your generation. I just always hated that phrase or whatever, but I think there's a misnomer possibly that are the people in the age group that you fall into, this Gen Z cycle, are more comfortable with technology than they are with interpersonal interaction.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I think it's a bit of both, right? I think we're so saturated with interaction online that maybe when we get to traditional places that maybe other generations were used to just that being the sole way to interact, maybe we don't interact as much. Maybe we dial back, right? So maybe we interact more and we crave interaction more, but we don't do it in the traditional ways that maybe another generation would, where it's like if I get to the dinner table, that's strictly the time I have set for interacting, and I want to fully interact there and be present. Maybe, we might not view it that way. Maybe we, view dinner as a good way to interact, but also we've interacted in other places, so we don't feel the need to like pour in and lean in as heavily in terms of the physical spaces. So yeah, I think what you're talking about, I think, points back to the fact that there's a little bit more of the blending between the physical and the digital world in our generation, and we generally live in both worlds and spend a lot of time in both worlds. And so I definitely agree with you that maybe we're not as present sometimes in the physical world as other generations, but overall, I think we seek to be social and to be connected more than any other generation.
yeah, and you talk about seek to be connected, the what I'm hearing is that there's actually when you are interacting with me, and we text each other times, or we connect
We
that
don't
way,
really text
email,
each other that much though, compared to
right?
the in-person interaction is I would
Correct.
say.
But what happens is that digital interaction uh, does have value to you.
Right.
Where for me, I have to get used to it. I want to go, oh, can we just talk? It's get this dynamics, but it's that interaction. So based upon that, as somebody who is in a leadership role today, leading a Gen Z workforce, um, what can they do in your perspective to help you be more productive and make you feel more connected to the groups that you might be a part of?
Yeah, to yeah, I guess to be 100% honest, I just think everybody is different, and
Hmm.
it's very relative, right? In terms of how people connect. I mean, some people, they want constant communication. Some people are good with just a little bit here and there, right? So yeah, I guess it's very relative. I mean, people, they have different communication and leadership styles, and that's something that I'm getting adjusted to and used to. For me, it's not really like I need much of that, to be honest. But I know other people and other workers and leaders, they need more of it. So yeah, I
But
think
tell
it's
me when you say it, I want to make sure people understand what you're referring to. When you say they need more of it, what are you referring to?
I think, some people they want in the workforce, like they want you to, be constantly updating them. They want to feel like they're a part of your process or your workflows, where other people are very much like, I just want to divide and conquer. And I just want this to be sort of, you have your lane and I have my lane. And as we're sort of taking on different lanes, then we sort of communicate on just keeping each other updated to just make sure everything's going well, right? And so I generally tend to be a little bit more of the latter, but I know a lot of people generally want to be more collaborative in terms of certain decisions that they make and stuff, and that would require more communication. So
Yeah,
going back to your original question, I just think it depends on the person, and everybody has kind of their own different style and their own way, and you just have to figure out, who you're dealing with and how to best suit that.
yeah, I love what you're talking about because it's the definition of EQ. And what I mean by that is emotional intelligence. Basically the book I wrote, equipped to lead the extraordinary power of emotional intelligence. The subject of emotional intelligence, the heart of it, is the ability to look at life or look at situations and circumstances through somebody else's perspective. Because if I just look at life through my perspective, The problem I run into is my EQ score will go down because I'm seeing things almost narcissistically through me. In other words, I want the world to adapt to me. But when I can get to a place where I can look at the world, or look at the situation, look at the team, look at the needs of the organization through somebody else's perspective, I'm more effective. And so what I'm hearing you say is that, I love this. You said that everyone has their own kind of needs and styles. And just because you're in there's a fallacy of putting a generational group together and say, because they're in this generation, that they're that way. It has to do with how does Alejo, choose to interact? What is his need? And then Alejo, as you're interacting with a leader, has to have the emotional intelligence to adjust. Well, based upon Mike's needs or my boss's needs, I need to adjust my preferred way of interacting so that we can have harmony, be able to have connectivity or whatever, and drive it along those lines. And so, what's been, again, I realize that you're just launching your career, and so you aren't sharing today from, what I call 40 years of wizardship. It's a perspective of somebody who's right in the heart of what I consider to be a mindset that we're trying to figure out. How do we make you create an opportunity for you to be as effective as you can be in the workplace? That's the desire in the heart. When your friends get together and y'all talk about what's it like working for leaders, or what's your desire to work with leaders, what are some of those conversations like?
Yeah, I mean, I think I wish I had more of those conversations with my friends, to be honest. Like, I wish, my friends and I got together and talked more about what it was like to work like for leaders. I think, one thing that a lot of my friends are sort of, as they now enter the workforce, I think a lot of my friends are working for leaders. Don't get me wrong, but there's a little bit more of that like hierarchical culture where it's kind of just like expected that they're like more of like your manager, more of like your sort of day-to-day delegator, sort of your direct boss, but not necessarily as much of that like, I interface with the person that really sets the culture for the organization. But in terms of like what I can tell you that my friends want out of the workplace, that as they start to enter the workplace, I think number one is they want meaningful and interesting work that they feel moves the needle and drives value. So if you put a young person in a role where it's really just meant to fill up the time that you don't have, and it's very meticulous and it doesn't move the needle, then I think that they're just going to feel, mentally bored, drained, and honestly burnt out. And I've been in roles like that. But I can tell you I've also experienced roles that are not like that. And that's not to say that, the work at the junior level entering, a company isn't going to be meticulous and there's going to be a lot of stuff that's just going to be handed down to you. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I think that there's varying degrees of that. And I think that as long as, you continue to have some sort of intellectual stimulation where you feel like you're part of a problem set and you feel like you're solving that, then I feel like that's sort of, at least for my friends, a sort of deal breaker in terms of where they choose to work. But also I would say I'm very different than a lot of my friends in terms of where to choose to work, because I've chosen to maybe work at a place and in a path that, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of, things up in the air, but yeah, I would say I'm different in that sense as well, in terms of like what I would value and what I would look for in a leader.
Yeah, but I think you've hit on something that's really important, Leo, that just because something is routine, okay, doesn't mean it doesn't have value, right? But if I'm going to ask you to do something routine, am I slowing down to explain to you the importance of whatever your role is and the value that it connects to you, the company, to the clients, the project, so that you can see that there's a sense of we're not supposed to get our value out of our self-worth. Our value out of what we do, our sense of self-worth out of our jobs. But the problem is we're human beings. So guess what? We get our sense of value out of what we do at work. So I think as leaders, we need to be able to slow down and be able to help people see the team that are reporting into us. What's the connection there between their work and what the organization is trying to accomplish? Something that is just maybe just very task driven with what they're trying to drive. Uh, do you have any observations on where you've seen leadership effectiveness breakdown?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to trust at the end of the day. And like it's so vague, but like I'll put it you like very specific. When you hire somebody to do a job and they're doing that job all the time, or they're sort of the expert and you know nothing, and then all of a sudden you start to question, why they're making certain decisions, and you start to sort of impose your will. And I'm more than guilty of this, especially in the beginning of when I started working on projects and with people. Then that is when it could really break down, because you underappreciate a lot of the intricacies, and you underappreciate that sort of decision making on that person. And so that's like the first place, when there's sort of, you know, let's just say, the CEO, and he's not the one selling the product, and he's like, oh, well, why aren't we doing X, Y, and Z, or this and that? And then you feel like, you're already drained, you're already selling, it's already tough. You have to feel like you have to justify yourself and be like, well, it's because in real time, this customer said X, Y, or Z, right? And I see that with a lot of like venue operators, for example, the ones that we work with, where it's like the more layers there are in management, and it's like, the guy that's running, the general manager or the owner of the bar, isn't even the one making the decisions in real time, having access to the customers. That's when things, really start to break. And I think the last thing is when there's, unreasonable expectations set by leadership or even employees. Like I've, been in both roles where, the employee will say, hey, like it's going to take this amount of time, or we're going to hit this amount of dollars. And in reality, I feel like it always takes 3 times as longer. It's always 3 times less than you expect. You know what I mean? Like it's like you
Mm-hmm.
have your projections, but then you have the things that actually happen and the things that actually work. And the good thing is that as you continue to grow in an industry, or in your job, like you start to apply mental models and frameworks to actually start getting better at making those decisions and those things. But I think, yeah, those are like, I would say, the two biggest places where I would see leadership breakdown.
Yeah, and what you're describing is effective communication, both directions. In other words, it's which is the heart and the role of the leader, is to bring clarity to situations and circumstances. And where clarity comes from is being able to both communicate in the form of being able to express, explain, give guidance, give direction. The second form of clarity that I hear you talking about, that was a great message to anybody who might be listening to this, is that if I want to communicate with you, do I spend as much time listening to you as I do speaking to you? And I think that's a key aspect of that's where connection comes into play. As I hear you saying, is that it's important um, to have a voice and to feel like your voice is being heard. That if I want to get you fully engaged with whatever it is I'm trying to have us work on together, is I need to create space for you to have a voice. That doesn't mean I have to give you the ability to make decisions. I have to make decisions as a leader, but I need to create an environment where we have enough place for some dialogue. It's powerful. So now you chose to go to work with a disruptor. It's a tech disruptor. It's a company called BarBoard. What's it like going to work with a startup tech disruptor? What's that like from a career standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a lot of it's a lot of uncertainty, and it's a lot of it's just it's a lot of just not knowing, and just it's a lot of there's so many things that you don't know. Like you don't know if you'll be able to make payroll in a year. You don't know if how much value people are going to find from your product. You don't In the beginning, like you don't even know like who wants your product, and if there's like even like a big market for it. Like you think but you don't really know. So
It's kind of like staring off in the abyss and trying to figure out what's out there. So help people who,
Right.
because again, a barboard is not a well-known word yet. I know you're working hard to make that happen, but tell us what is barboard? What are y'all doing?
Yeah, well, it's BarBoards,
Or boards, excuse
yeah,
me.
plural with an S. No, yeah, no worries at all. And essentially, what we're doing is we're building this box that can use artificial intelligence to control the TVs at bars and restaurants. And so, what that means is that we can, automatically change the channel whenever we feel like there's sort of a piece of content that's not suited or tailored to the audience of the bar and show essentially better content. So maybe starting with TV breaks, whenever, there's a break in the broadcast or there's a halftime show or, some sort of TV break, then we can automatically change the channel to show a promotion from the bar or an advertising special from a local business or just a business in general. And so yeah, like we've been able to, be a really huge value add to a lot of these bars and venues that we work with. But ultimately, like, I mean, there's still like a lot of questions and a lot of uncertainty with the actual product itself, right?
Yeah, because you're in launch phase. I mean, you're out the gates, and I think your primary market right now is, I believe, in the Austin area.
Austin, Houston, and Dallas and San Antonio. And yeah,
So
we've already
Texas,
launched, but now it's just about getting those contracts.
right, trying to get this thing scaling or whatever. So I want to thank you, Alejo, for sharing your time and your perspective. And that's what today was about. So I wanted to have a Gen Z perspective to give leaders a chance to think of, if I'm going to hire somebody like you who is wicked smart, somebody like you who is really driven. And when I think about the hours that you put in and the way you approach things, the way that I'm going to connect with you is by making you feel valued by not just by what I say, but giving you a voice at the table, so that you can feel a sense of purpose behind what you're doing. Doesn't mean we have to go and save the whales. It has to do with whatever the product or service you're providing, that you see that it's going to provide value and that you in that journey can provide value. That's a huge driver that we need to factor in. So just want to thank you so much for your time, and I wish you the best of luck.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mike. We'll talk soon.
Thanks for joining us today on Lighting the Path, Strategies for Tomorrow's Leaders. If anything in this podcast speaks to you, if I've challenged you, or if you want to spend time digging into this subject a little deeper, or if you disagree with me, reach out. My contact information is on our website, lightingthepath.net, or email me at mike@mikelejeune.com. Also, look for me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect our networks. Keep lighting the path for those who choose to follow you. It's more than a responsibility. It's an honor.